It's currently like 2 degrees outside and snowing, so what better thing to do than to talk about roller coasters. And today we're going to be reviewing Manta at SeaWorld Orlando, somewhere that is nice and warm. I'm going to be showing you everything you need to know about Manta, so without further ado, let's get started. So Manta is a B&M flying coaster, again located at SeaWorld Orlando. This coaster opened up back in 2009, has a height of about 140 feet, reaches a top speed of 56 miles per hour, features a total of 4 inversions, and features approximately 3,400 feet of track. I do want to take a moment to appreciate just how beautiful the landscaping and everything is around Manta. Like, this is just absolutely beautiful. And I'd say it is the best looking ride at the park with surroundings and all of that. And I also really like the paint job too. One thing to definitely note is that the line on Manta can get fairly long at times. It's obviously located in the center front area of the park, which can help to increase wait times. And in general, the loading and unloading process of a flying coaster simply just takes longer. Like, is the capacity horrendous? No, but it's definitely not good either. So I would expect to wait about a solid 30 or so minute wait on like an average crowd day, maybe 45. And when it's busy, you could wait well over an hour, just due to the nature of this ride. Now, my first experience with a flying coaster was not great. Probably because it was Nighthawk at Carowinds. I mean, that coaster at this point basically just has square wheels. Thank God they're actually going to remove it. And if you do want to check out that video, it'll be in the top right hand corner or something. But I think that unpleasant experience kind of made me a little worried about Manta, because I did not know if I was going to like this coaster going in. Because what if it was just another Nighthawk? Now obviously this coaster is made by B&M, so it should in theory be smoother than old Gen Vekoma. But I was still a little bit worried that I would be disappointed. I was also a little bit curious if I just wasn't a big fan of the flying coaster aspect, or like the concept maybe. But this coaster definitely changed my mind on flying coaster. And I very much enjoyed my ride on Manta. And I happened to be pleasantly surprised. Alright, enough background information, let's go through the ride experience of Manta element by element, to help you guys get a feel of what your ride on Manta will be like. You dispatch from the station and begin your ascent up your 140 foot tall lift hill. This is kind of cool because this is your first experience like in the flying position on this coaster, and you are fairly high up off the ground, and you can get a really nice view of the surrounding area. And you know, looking down at the ground is also kind of fun and maybe a little scary too. Especially since this is not a normal position to ride a roller coaster in. But before you know it, you are at the top of the lift hill and prepare to descend your drop. You again can get a beautiful view of the surrounding area, but before you know it, you begin banking right and enter the drop. This drop also feels really weird at first too, because it is again unlike any element you've experienced before. This is also your first experience with like some like true G-force in the flying position, and I must say, you really do feel like you are flying on this drop. And it's a really cool experience. Your next element is a massive pretzel loop. These are found on most other B&M flying coasters and are very, very intense elements, especially in the flying position. As you begin entering the element, like right here, you start to feel a lot of G-force on your back, and right there, you're literally facing the sky. Again, super intense and a lot of fun too, but a fair warning, it could be a little nauseating if you are susceptible to that. You then bank to your left and enter an inline twist. It's a pretty slow element, you kind of get a little hang time per se, I don't know really how to describe that. Almost like reverse hang time, like you're facing the sky for a couple seconds, and it's again another really cool element in the flying position. You then bank to the right and enter your corkscrew. I do wish this corkscrew was a little bit faster paced. I mean, you get a little bit more of that like reverse hang time I said. It also is a really cool shot, like going over the midway like that, and it's again, this is a beautiful roller coaster to watch. But I just wish that element had a little bit more speed to it, and I think it would be a little more exciting. But it's not bad whatsoever. And as I've said, it's basically the theme of the video at this point. It may not be super forceful or anything, but it's still a super cool element to do in the flying position. You then glide up into the mid-course brake run, getting a little bit of foreshadowing to what the final brake run will look like, before diving down into a little bit of a valley and entering your little fake splashdown, which I think is really cool. And I find that it's just a really cool element to look at and experience because that water does get pretty close to you. It's a thing SeaWorld didn't have to do, but they still did it anyway. I think it just kind of adds to this ride. And just adds to the whole beautiful landscaping of this. You then bake right and go into another helix overlooking the midway and the cool rocks right there, before entering your fourth and final inversion, which is another inline twist. This is again pretty similar to the first inline twist, getting some almost like reverse hang time, looking at the sky and everything, and it's a pretty solid element to end the ride off on. You then bank left one last time before gliding into your final brake run. But the ride's not done yet, because now you get to sit there and stare at the wonderful, potentially throw-up cover beneath you. This is my one complaint with this ride, is that when you stack on the final brake run, you are still stuck in that flying position. And as I've said, the flying coaster trains are in general take longer time to load than traditional coaster trains. So there is a very real possibility you could sit there in the flying position, which is for well over a minute at a time. And yes, it's pretty annoying that you have to do this, but I try to just look past this kind of flaw in the ride, I guess, and just focus on the positives, because besides this, Manta's a pretty darn good ride. You then roll back into the station, thus concluding your ride on Manta at SeaWorld Orlando. Now, as I said earlier, this coaster helped to change my opinion on flying coasters. Again, I rode Nighthawk as my first flying coaster, and did not enjoy it at all. But Manta really helped to show me what a true good flying coaster can be. And remember, this coaster is now almost 15 years old. And some of the newer Vekoma flying coasters just really look insane. And I really hope I get the chance to ride some of those one day. SeaWorld again did such a good job with the paint and then just the surrounding landscape for Manta. It just all looks so good. And it's pretty much the perfect centerpiece for a park. One last thing I do want to note, and I mentioned this briefly in the video when I was discussing the layout and everything, but this coaster, if you are susceptible to nausea on roller coasters like this, I might recommend skipping this coaster. It's a pretty unnatural position to be riding a coaster in the first place, and if you are susceptible to nausea, this coaster could make you feel pretty bad. Like, it's not anything, it's not a level of like a spinning coaster nausea level, but I would just be careful if you know that can sometimes bother you. Alright, so what's Manta's final score? Well, I'm gonna give Manta a solid 8 out of 10. It's a pretty unique ride experience you're not gonna find at a ton of parks. I feel like it's a pretty solid layout, the landscaping is beautiful, and the added water effects and the rock work around the second half of the coaster just is pretty much the icing on the cake right there. But it is a little bit on the shorter side. The pacing is not great. It can be a little slow at sometimes. And as I've mentioned, the brake run, you can often sit there for a minute plus at a time, which again is not very comfortable. But it's still overall a good roller coaster and a must ride at SeaWorld Orlando. Alright, so Manta's great and all, but what about the rest of the coasters at SeaWorld Orlando? Are they good? Are they bad? Should you spend your precious time at the park giving them a try? Well, if you want a review of every single major thrill coaster at SeaWorld Orlando, then check out the video on your screen right now, because it'll help you decide which coasters you need to take a ride on. And spoiler alert, there's a surprisingly good roller coaster here at SeaWorld Orlando that you definitely need to take a ride on. And it's probably not the coaster you'd expect. Also, if you did enjoy the video, make sure to subscribe for more coaster content coming your way. As always, thank you guys for watching. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you all in the next one.